Hi everyone, welcome back to OC and welcome back to the Natives in Norwich Zoom room. Today we've got part 3 of our Zoom calls with Bernard Williams. Now this is the last part today, so this is part 3. And today we're looking at the history of the hobby and a lot of the things that Bernard does. So he collects a lot of antique bird feeders, drinkers, things like that. And he's got some really old articles as well. Also a lot of really interesting facts about the history of keeping British birds. So hopefully you enjoyed today's video, and just before we go into that, I'd like to say a huge thank you again to Avian World Dublin for sponsoring Natives in Norwich. Hello, welcome back to the Natives in Norwich Zoom room. So today we've finally got the returning episode and we're joined by Mr. Bernard Williams. So thank you for joining us, mate. So would you just like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about the bird you keep now and a bit about the bird you've kept in the past?
Hi Oliver, it's nice to be here. Feels strange talking to birdmen over the internet, but it seems to be more and more popular just lately, I think, than actually going in a show hall and talking. So
most definitely.
Better get used to it, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, my name's Bernard Williams, and I've kept birds for 50 odd years, 50 years plus. I run a cage bird society from the age of 19. So how old are you now?
I'm 19, yeah.
So there you go. So I was running a 2,000 bird show at 19, 600 borders and Gloucesters and 150 Yorkshire Canaries, which you just don't see in one show hall anymore. And there was 2,000 birds in that event. And it was at Cobridge TA where a lot of our British shows, the reason it was there was because I was used to that venue from the early days. But so I was running that show from the age of 19 for about 20 years, taking people on bus trips to the national exhibition at Alexandra Palace, 2 buses, and trying to run a raffle on one and getting off at the services and jumping on the other bus and going there and until you got to Rally Pally, and then doing the same on the way back so we could earn a few bob for the club. Jumble sales was the way we made money in them days, and we used to have to stand as birdmen on tables selling clothes for a penny and tuppence, and that's how we could afford to run the show. It was the jumble sales. I don't know if you know of a jumble. Have you heard of a jumble sale?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, because you don't see them nowadays, do you really?
No.
So that was that, and that's how we earned our money. And rail birds were all the thing in them days, and we'd do 300 trips down to Stoke railway station to pick birds up in a van. Every time the station master rang, we'd have to zoom off in a car down, somebody would, and fetch the rail birds. And every 5 minutes I was running in the hall saying, who can nip down the station, fetch me some more birds? And that's how all the birds arrived in them days. That was banned about 20 years ago, so they stopped allowing us to send birds by transport. But the birds used to come up on train and go through into the station master's office, and as soon as they arrived at his office, he would then ring to say, "There's some more birds for you." But we didn't have a mobile phone in them days, so it made things a lot more difficult because nobody had invented mobile phones. Sounds a long time ago, but it wasn't actually. It was probably 35 years ago. So.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
From that, I started a company called Ceramic Trophies. Ceramic Trophies was a company. I was just looking if I got a picture of Ceramic Trophies. It was. There's a picture if you can actually see it.
Yeah, I think you just sharing screen now. Awesome.
Yeah,
got you.
It.
Wow.
So there's the stall that I used to run, and I was selling trophies in China, like you see at Staffordshire Bird Show now. That was my company for 20 years. And we supplied trophies to over 500 cage bird societies.
Wow.
We haven't got 500 caged bird societies anymore. So,
No.
and these little ceramic rosettes across the top there, they were quite popular, and they were different to the norm, so something different to us. And that's just something that I invented, and we used and sold lots and
Yes.
lots of.
They're amazing. Wow.
Yeah, it was something that I built up from scratch, and over 20 years, as I say, we were supplying over 500 clubs and societies.
Fantastic.
We'll come off that one now, and back with you. Yeah, so that ran for 20 odd years, and during that time, 1981, we had the inception of the Countryside and Wildlife Act, when birds had to be rung. Up to that time, we could show birds without rings on. Needless to say, when you went to a show, you'd have, for example, in them days, I won a class at the National Exhibition in 1980. There was 28 bullfinch cocks, and I imagine they'd been caught all over the country, so they were probably the best bullfinch cocks that you could possibly get your hands on. In them days, it wasn't quite frowned on, and it wasn't legal, but it wasn't really illegal in the early days. So them birds would have been absolutely phenomenal, and you would get all the top breeders and the people I looked up to, your Terry McCrackens, and your Jack Lloyds, and your Derry Colnose. And in fact, if I'd have thought to get the catalogue out, I could have read the names of that class, because it was very scary to see the names. And this particular day in 81, in 1980, I went down. The National had burnt down the hall had burnt down, and they'd moved to Birmingham, Bingley Hall, and that burnt down after 2 years. So I think we've got a bit of a history with the National of, and I was just showing in them days, and taking me bus trips along from Hanley Caged Bird Society. But anyway, I won that class, so I was quite absolutely over the moon, because to beat people like Derry Colnose and, your Jack Lloyds and Terrys and Bob Partridges was just not known for me at that time in the late 70s. So that was, anyway, the British Bird Breeders Association, which was a big society in them days, doesn't exist now. We also had the Midland British Softbill Society. And the British Bird Breeders Association produced a list of all first breedings. They supplied trophies for people. They wasn't really into the shows the same way. They were more into the breeding of British birds. So that was called the British. That was called the British Bird Breeders. That's my wife giving me comment.
Right. Wow.
Still there?
Yeah, still got you.
Yeah, so that was the British Bird Breeders Association, and they was a nice society because more emphasis was on breeding, and they would give awards out, medals out for first breedings of certain birds, which I've got a few of those now in my collection,
Wow, fantastic.
British Birdman from Derbyshire brought me his medal, and it was for the first breeding of the willow warbler from the British Bird Breeders Association in captivity. And I've also got the first breeding of the goldfinch in captivity. I've got that medal as well in my collection. So they get that I like the British Bird Breeders because it was not all about the 3 months of showing, it was about what you did for the rest of the year. And,
right.
Anyway, a bloke named Peter Howe run that society at the time. And Peter asked me to, would I go on the inspectors panel during the inception of the Countryside and Wildlife Act. Well, because our lads didn't like the thought of ringing birds, they didn't like the idea of any of our birdmen going on the inspection panel. But I went on because I believed it was important to get bird people on that panel so that when an inspection was done, it was done by birdmen rather than inspectors that had never kept a bird in their life and didn't understand you couldn't clean an aviary out when you'd got, you know, 2 red-polled goalies or red-polled bullies in the nest, you know.
Yeah.
It be. So there was things we believed that it was important that there was enough bird keepers on there as well as protectionists.
Oh, most definitely.
So I went for that, which didn't go down too well with a few people because they thought you'd turn sides. The reality was you wasn't. You was trying to look after the men properly.
Yeah.
Also during that time, we had 3 years where we didn't have to close. All the birds we had that weren't wrong we had a split ring and a pair of pliers to put a metal split ring around every bird, and we had to put them on a list and send them into DEFRA. And then birds could stay in captivity then with no proof of breeding, no nothing, for them 3 years. And after that 3 years, we wouldn't be able to show them birds anymore. We had to then show birds that were wrong. So going from a time where we had no rings on birds to having a time where everything had to be wrong, we only had a 3-year cycle to do it. So it was a very bad time for us bird keeping. It was, but we got over it. And the thing I learned from that was, from my days as a young boy going out with catchers and things, I did learn that we're very resilient, us British men. And if we say we can't keep them anymore, we breed them and so make sure we can. And that's exactly what we did. And we saw, and as we see now, as I look back, we've seen so many species breeding and not rejecting rings like happened in them days. I keep hearing of ring rejections, but I don't find it half as bad personally. And whether that's because my birds have been bred in captivity a long time, and then birds are now used to seeing that ring on the leg. And they don't even mind generally that the ring colour changes annually, you know.
Yeah.
Some do, but majority don't because they're used to it. But that's another story, you know. So I went on that panel, and that panel was disbanded eventually. There was a few unscrupulous people on that panel, and they disbanded it and gave the job to the RSPCA. And made it. So we lost a little bit of foothold there. So, but that was it. And that was from the British Bird Breeders Association. They've long since gone, unfortunately. And then at that time, I become section representative for the national exhibition, running the British section at the national at Bingley Hall, not Bingley Hall, sorry, at the NEC. Hall was as big as state football ground, and we got, you know, lots and lots of birds. The biggest show I ever ran there as show manager was 10,000.
Wow.
10,000 birds in one hall, and it would take a week to put the staging up. And I had 6 men and a juggernaut and a forklift truck to put the staging up. And it took a week, and then it took 2 days to mark it out with the class numbers. And that was the national. I had 200 stewards, 46 judges, and they all had to be looked after. So it was, that in itself was a tremendous job.
That's a massive job.
I absolutely love that job. And I regularly say that was like being asked to be the manager of the England football team. That was as going there as a boy and going there, taking my club there later in life, and then ending up being the show manager of that show in the end. It was quite, you know, for me, it was fantastic. It couldn't have been any better.
Most
and then
definitely.
I would spend a year here where I am now in the office, just sitting, preparing for the next show. And the minute it was finished, we started all over again. And that's how that one went. So I was I run the British section for 4 years, and then I was show manager for 5 or 6. And then the very last show we were doing, I was actually the total show organizer, running the whole event. And we got it all planned, and the animal rights protesters stopped that event.
Oh no.
And they said keeping birds in cages was not the way to go. So we ended up in court, and we were in court in Solihull, and we fought that with Cage and Avery. We sat there for days, you know, to try and get it overruled, but we never managed, and the show was eventually cancelled. So if you can imagine sitting here preparing for an event for a year, and 2 weeks before that set started, having a phone call to say, right, stop what you're doing, that's the end of that. And that national has run. I've got stuff here from the national from 1890. I've even got videos from 1908 and 1910 of Pathé News of the nationals that ran. And yet again, that was another club that had gone by the by, well, another show that had gone by the by. So we've had some bad times, you know. Anyway, going on now, I serve on the committee of the National British Bird and Mule Club, Staffordshire British Bird and Mule Club, and the British Bird Council. I don't attend as much as I can because of my health now, but I'm still on the end of a phone if anybody needs me.
Yeah.
Staffordshire, I do. I still participate quite a lot. And I started that club 35 years ago. And we've just had a resurgence. Hopefully, we've got a full committee again, and we're up and running. So, and that's our next show, isn't it, Staffordshire?
Yeah. Yeah, it's 16th of January.
That's right. So
awesome. Well, I'll be there.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, you know, we're still running, hopefully. And that was a worry up until a month ago. So a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
So I'm quite pleased that's, I hope that club keeps going.
Oh, definitely.
The best years of that club we had at St. Joseph's College, we were getting nearly 800 birds. And,
wow.
You know, we've seen that drop down now to 500, even under sometimes. So it's the whole lobby's a worry at the moment. So we need all you young people to get up there and get involved with these things.
Definitely.
And take over so that when we go, you know, you're not going to see what I saw and all see things like the national collapse around. You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've judged most specialist shows. The all British I've judged 3 or 4 times. So I've done most of them, Eastern Fair and London and home counties. And so I've judged all of those. Whether I've done a good job, some people will tell you no, some people will say yes. That's the fact of judging, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, I wrote the book.
Yeah.
Mules and Hybrids. That was done purely because mule and hybrids is my main love. Always was. It just so happens as over 50 years you get not bored, but you want to change, and you go from one place to the other. And that's what's happened to me. So when you look back, you can say, well, you know, it was nice keeping skylarks. It was lovely breeding 40 chaffinches in one season in all different colours. And I think even this week I posted one I bred of a white chaffinch.
Yeah.
And that was a dominant. It seems that I keep coming back to dominant whites somehow, you know, or dominant colour. I mean, with the pied greenfinch, for example, and
yeah,
even the pied bullfinches are they're recessive, but we're still on the pied. It seems like it's all pieds.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic hearing the history of it. I've been doing it.
So I mean, just to show you one thing.
Yeah.
Just showing you now. Talk about keeping birds as a young man. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that?
Yeah, got you.
Now, Cage and Avery Birds used to do a section for the junior breeders. They don't do it anymore. And Hilton Blythe was a very famous man at the time, and when I sent, my dad filmed me the application in and sent it off to Cajun Avery and paid to join, and that's what come back, and that was
Brilliant.
in 1968. You see,
Wow.
and that was Cajun Avery Birds Junior Bird League, and that was the badge that all the children wore as they walked around the Nationals to say, "Look, I'm a member of the Junior Bird League."
Fantastic.
And we used to do things around the venue for just for children to join in, and drawing birds and special offers off different trade stands, and
Yeah.
And when I grew up and run ceramic trophies, every single year I give a clock with a kingfisher on, which was the emblem, and said
Yeah.
Junior Bird League Member of the Year, and we presented it at the National every year to a junior.
Fantastic.
To a junior person, and that was that. Showing
That's brilliant. Yeah. Well, speaking of your memorabilia and all of that stuff, we've seen loads of photos and all that. What's the oldest piece that you've got, and what's really got you started?
I'll just show you this one, then we're off this altogether. That's Peter Lander selling his book. I don't know if you've ever seen Peter Lander's book, British Birds in Agriculture. My father's sitting next to him. They're talking there about, and he's selling his book. That's my son Christopher now. That's that comes to show with me, and my sister.
Yeah.
That was the very first Staffordshire British Bird Meal Club show 35 years ago.
Wow.
So that was at that particular event. And
Yeah.
I wasn't living there at the time, but I actually live in the same street where that show is now, and I didn't at the time, so that was strange. Yes.
Fantastic.
You can go on to you're talking about the feeders, yeah.
Yeah.
The oldest one, there's two. I'm just looking for a picture of it now. The oldest one is this one. Okay. You see the one on the, I don't know if it's your left, the darker coloured one.
Yeah.
That fell off the rigging of a ship in the 1600s and landed plump in the water in the Thames. That was on a cage hanging on a sailing ship coming into the Thames, and it was dug up by I don't know what they call them now. What do they call them? Mudlarks. Mudlarks they call them. They dig, and it's a lead feeder off a bird cage, and so that's that one. And that's 1600. Yeah, and this one was sent to me by a man named Roy Stringer. I don't know if you know Roy Stringer or have ever heard of Roy Stringer.
Yeah, I've heard the name, yeah.
Yeah, so Roy Stringer was Mr. Cajun Avery Birds for a good many years. And Roy sent me this. He was a metal detectorist, and he was digging in Shrewsbury, and he come across a musket ball inside this bird feeder. So that was 1700s, and the musket ball was with it. There was a couple of musket balls in this bird feeder. And these are normally found flattened because they're lead. But I've got them in a book that actually proves that that's what they are, bird feeders. And they had a wire that went around that lip.
Yeah.
And that was, that was them. These are just a few of the others. Can you see those?
Yes, yeah.
So these are a few Victorian glass feeders. As you see, that the little bit on the top there is where it hangs in the cage, and the round circular hole goes up to a hole, and we put the head through.
Yeah.
And these are opalescent glass. So there's lots of different ones of those. I could go on forever with those, Yeah,
that's brilliant. Wow.
So I've got nearly 200 to 300 of those, ranging from there at 1600 through until until, well, till the 1940s. And if you
Right.
look at these, those are on screen now,
Whoa, look at those.
mainly Victorian bottle feeders, 1920s. All these that you see in these trays there, they're still available now in plastic, but these were all in ceramic.
Fantastic.
And these glass drinkers down there are the same as you use today, similar, but
Yeah.
they're real glass. They're real glass, not plastic, of course.
Wow. So how did you get started out with all this?
Yeah, what happened was I was in a man's bird shed, a friend of mine, when I was a young man, and he got two of them in the window, and they had Capons on, which is a birdseed company. They'd actually got the word Capons written on them. And I said, oh, I love them. I've never seen them in glass. And I said, them would do for hang me goldy mule out of the cage, hang on the cage. And he said, take them with you. And he gave me two. And that's where it started. And since then, everywhere I've gone, every antique fair or everywhere I've ever gone, I've looked for them. And, you know, there's,
Fantastic.
you look at some of these, there's Chinese, and some of them were used for underground in a colliery when they took a bird underground, keep the water in. Can't point them out to you because I don't think my pointer works, does it?
I know, I can see it.
Can you see my pointer?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, well, the one it's on now is a deep cup that used to fit on a little cage on the wire with through a hole.
Right.
You fill that with water, and when they carried a canary underground for the gas, because if the canary passed out, they get out the pit quickly.
Yes,
but the water used to keep dipping out, so they made them very deep, so that the water would stay in when it was being swung around. You see.
Yeah.
And you know, these
Fantastic.
just a few more. It just goes on, really.
There's some amazing pieces you've got there.
Yeah, there, look, the nest bowls there, look, you see the nest bowls?
Yeah.
They just fixed in the cage, and that's like you've got a bit of plastic today, well.
Yeah.
And that one there's a bird bath from the 1920s.
Wow.
We didn't have baths like we got today.
No, very different.
These are Japanese, and these were done in pairs, obviously, look, pair of canaries, pair of owls. And underneath, some of them say made in Japan, but that one there says made in occupied Japan. And what happened was, when the war finished, we allowed the Japanese, after they'd lost the war, we allowed them to start making products again. But we made them put the word made in occupied Japan on the bottom of everything to prove they were occupied, you know. And that's one that was made, so we can date that exactly to be 1945 to 1950.
Wow.
You know,
well, that's an amazing collection.
Yeah, and where I see them now is when you open a boot, there's the lead one, Luke, that we were talking about. But when you look in the books, these, when you see a picture of an old cage, I regularly see these on. They are the original Caponers ones that the man gave me the two. And they say Capons on, which was a birdseed company. So they were even putting an advert on them as well. And as I say, that's that one where you see a piece sticking out the top, they were blown into a mold. So the man would heat the glass at the bottom, put it in a mold, close the mold and then blow it. It would blow that and then they'd just snap it off. And because they were cheap, that's how they were left.
Yeah.
And that's how they were left. And,
fantastic. I mean, what a brilliant collection.
That's them. Yeah,
Wow,
that.
Fantastic. Well, you know, Bernard, that does take us to the end of our questions. So massive thank you. Is there anything else you wanted to mention to anyone watching?
I'd like to show you a couple of price cards because we did talk about price cards, didn't we?
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
I went to Lancashire this week, one of the lads come up to me, which was Alistair Juna, and he said, "Here's a few price cards for you. please put them in your collection, which people do from time to time. And
Yeah.
and this was one of those. Have I linked up with you now? That's it there. Sorry, I'm not so good at this program.
That's all right. Look at that.
So as you see, these were prize cards given away. That's a mule look, you see,
Yeah.
blind mule. And that was these were given away. If you look at there, that's 1921 from Aberdeen. Inverness, 1907, best bird in show. 1906.
1989.
1907, 1925. So they
Scots,
do go back to the 1800s, I think, 1906. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's a cinnamon. This
That's
was a
brilliant.
cinnamon Norwich, but they look a bit different than the Norwich today.
Yeah, very different.
Yeah, just the last ones. And he gave me those,
Yeah.
Which, where are we going here? Just quickly.
That's super.
Okay, so these are prize cards, and I don't know what's coming up because there's quite a few in this particular folder. So you just get whatever you get. There we go. So you can see that's 1900. These were prize cards that were put on every case. Now, when I first started, we had these, and these were given to you, and you got one for every bird that was placed. So we used to have an album and used to save them all in an album, where we'd won them, what we'd won. It was like saving postcards, actually, and they were each different for each different club. And
Wow.
These were some of the little prizes. Now, this was on the back of the cards. These were adverts on the back. So companies would sponsor the cards, and these adverts were paid. They paid for the cards, and they got out their product information. As you can see, that's Hyde's famous mountain bread.
Yeah.
See, look, and it's made, and Hyde's shell gravel, a penny a bag. So and that was on the back, and then of course on the front it's another one, orange plume egg paste. And it says down at the bottom, try Hyde's new lark food, because they all kept singing larks in them days.
Yeah.
It's another story, because I've bred quite a few skylarks here. So.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I'm sure we'll have another one to go, another call at some point, another episode of it. That'd be great.
Sprats, sponsored by Sprats, the birdseed company, the
Yeah.
food company, and that was for Oxford show in 1895.
Wow.
Now, that's a special card again, 1891. So these iron tonic grit, these just go on and on and on. And but what you're seeing is the fact that it was something nice to win.
Absolutely.
And they encouraged, a lot of people run them down and said they used to be all over the floor, nobody wanted them. And that's true, it was. Champions would pull them out of the cages and leave them all over the floor to be swept up. But to a novice just starting off, they were a lovely thing to, at least he went home as though he'd won something.
Oh, most definitely.
And they did take a lot of filling in. Now, this one was the National Exhibition that we talked about. And this was at the Royal Horticultural Hall in Westminster there in 1947. And that's the second prize.
Wow.
And that's a National Place Award. Now,
Yeah.
even me, I've got stacks and stacks, which I haven't got them on computer, but I could show me. And of the National, when we give first to seventh cards out. So everybody that showed at the National, if you'd won 3 first, you got 3 cards to prove it. So you'd always got the cards to save, and I've still saved all mine because, and so will a lot of other people. So when people say they're not worth having, well, you know, that's all down to everybody's own interest.
Yeah. Well, it's more memories to look back on, isn't it? And like you say, it's something to
I
look
think
at.
so, but some people like going forward, not backwards. I find
Yeah.
that I find that we were much better years ago at everything than we do
Yeah.
now. Today, now, I mean, for example, and I've shown these many times, I know, but you know, when you think that these medals all won at Crystal Palace, then at the sixth, I'm
Wow.
sixth there. These are more modern. These are all mine from me winning.
They're
solid
lovely, though,
gold.
aren't
They're all solid gold. Imagine going
Wow.
to a show and coming back with a solid gold medal.
they? Wow.
Now these, if I zoom in, is it showing you
Yeah,
when I
yeah,
zoom? So
yeah.
when I zoom in there, if you look at those, that's a National British Bird and Mule Club medal. And on the back of these, it tells you all where they were won. All those are National British Bird and Mule medals.
Oh, super.
And they're solid silver. And,
Wow, a lot of money worth of these, isn't it? Wow.
that's solid gold. Look, National British Bird and Mule Club, solid gold, 9-carat gold. National British Bird and Mule Club, National British Bird and Mule Club. Now they were giving them away for different shows. There's another bachelor, one of the national Cajun Avery birds.
Yeah.
You know, this just goes, you know, on and on. The first breeding medals we talked about,
Yeah.
they are in here somewhere. You know, spoons, solid silver. Some of these are what I've won myself. The Society of British Bird Breeders, that doesn't exist anymore. National British Bird and Mule Club. We had a period in the 60s and 70s where we gave spoons. 5 Towns, that was the club I run. I actually drew that logo. Cajun Avery birds, you see. So there's lots of these
Brilliant.
medals. And there you go, Luke. You see, that's the national catalogue from 1935. And that shows you that you could swap your prize money for one of these medals. And if you look at that medal, we've just passed some of those. And they were made by Alexander Costa. They weren't actually awarded by the club. In them days, you would have prize money, and I used to sit all night working the prize money out. You would have, if there were 7 in a class, it was a full class, you got 1/5 of the prize of the entry money. And if you come second, you got like a 4th and a 3rd or whatever. So all them pennies were added up, and at the end, you were given that money. And you could take that money at the national and swap what you'd won for a first for that particular medal that says the National Show Crystal Palace Cage Bird Exhibition. You see if you look.
Yeah. Yeah, got you.
And they were given, and you could have them in silver gilt or bronze. And if you look back onto these, just should be one in there. Well, they are them. And if you look, there's a silver one, Luke. And you see, you can just about read that says Crystal Palace National Challenge Show, Cajun Avery Birds. And that would have been 1930, I think.
Brilliant.
So that's all of those. So.
That's fantastic. I mean, I imagine this is only a very small part of your collection, isn't it?
Oh, very minute. These are just bits that were on the computer that I could open up and show you while you were here. But
fantastic.
It gets big. It's the paper stuff, the catalogues, the national catalogues from the 1900s, and the articles. I mean, just while we're on the subject, I've never shown this to anybody.
Yeah.
No, it's not that one. No, I haven't got it here now. Oh, there it is. I think. No, I can't find it.
Oh, okay,
But
no
what
worries.
it is the first breeding of a bird. Here it is. Let me open it now. And then we'll end on that if you've done.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So it's a snippet for everybody to see. At Luton Show, I had the pleasure of seeing finest linnet greenfinches I've viewed for years. So there we go again, linnet greenfinches.
Yeah,
You don't see them shown now very often. Last year at Luton, it was at the Crystal Palace Show of 1927. Can you read that?
yeah, got you.
It was at the Crystal Palace Show of 1927 that the rare and unique siskin chaffinch came out, showing the parentage well. We are therefore anticipating some interesting things this season in this section of our hobby. Now, that was done by John Robson. Now, if you knew your history like I do, John Robson wrote the most wonderful book on hybrids. I've still got it. It's a leather-bound edition, like a massive giant Bible. And I've got it here. And he wrote this in Caged Birds Annual, 1927. So John Robson wasn't a man talking on the internet that he'd seen a siskin chaffee. John Robson was one of the top men of the day.
Yeah.
And he's written it in Caged Birds, because they did an annual every year, once a year. And he's read that there was a siskin chaffee at Crystal Palace in 1927. Now,
wow, I mean, I'd love to see one of those.
Especially know that the siskin chaffinch she's never been recorded.
No.
So, well, that just shows you that, you know, I've got no more proof than that. I've got no more proof than that.
If it's possible, though, then people need to try it.
I've got the 1936 National Catalogue, and
Right.
it wasn't in there. So if anybody out there has got the 1931, we may see it exhibited, new exhibited. I don't know, because some of these things are still knocking around. You know?
Yeah.
So, well, that's just a snippet to finish on.
That's
an interesting thing when somebody said who bred the first siskin chaffinch. You know?
Yeah, well, that's amazing. Wow, I can't get my head around that. Wow.
No, and you see, I wrote well over 100 articles for Cage and Every Birds, and it's only through research that I've wrote them because of my love of the hobby and finding out this sort of stuff. And so a lot of the articles that I've written have been done through research. And behind me here is all for my, you know, the cupboards are full of all the stuff that I can sit and go through forever and a day and find something that happened somewhere, you know.
Yeah.
Or a picture of birds with a feeder on that I haven't got, that I'm still hunting for. Or,
yeah.
You know. And so them things are interesting to me. Whether
most definitely.
People, I don't know.
But, I certainly find it interesting. Yeah, well, it's all the history of the hobby, isn't it? You know.
Have we covered everything? You think? Have we answered everybody's questions?
Yes. Yeah, we have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Ben, that's massive thank you for your time and sharing. You know, just a drop of your knowledge on that, and just massive thank you. I'll leave the link in the description of this video to your website. Yeah, I've been on it a few times and then people can look at that. So yeah, well, massive thank you.
And on my Facebook page if you want.
Yeah, I'll put that on there as well. Awesome.
Brilliant. Lovely.
Massive thank you. Thank you so much.
All the best. The only thing I do say to anybody is please support your local clubs because we're struggling at the minute.
Yeah.
And if you want this hobby to survive, or like some of the stuff you've just seen, I don't expect any clubs today to give half of these things out, but wouldn't it be nice if we were, you know, if we carried the hobby forward to the next generation?
Absolutely.
Better than we left it. And at the moment, I'm going to leave it worse than it was through my time.
Yeah.
We can't do that. We need to keep it going.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, massive thank you. That's
No
brilliant.
problem.
Thank you ever so much. Awesome.
It's some use.
Right.
So guys, that brings us to the end of this week's video. I hope you've enjoyed it and found some useful things from the past of keeping British birds from Bernard Williams. Again, massive thank you out there to Bernard for doing this and taking time to do this. I'm sure we'll be back again with Bernard at some point in the new year. And then also again, massive thank you to Avian World Dublin for sponsoring Natives in Norwich. Now, if you want to see more and you're not subscribed, then please subscribe down below. Smash the like button to show me you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.